concerned. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Fatima, and I'm a registered and licensed dietitian. I work as a child nutrition specialist at a school district and also have my private practice called Dallas Dietitian Nutritionist. I'm very excited to be here. So some of the topics we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about how our body responds to fasting. When we eat our suhoor, what happens, what gets broken down, what gets stored, and what is used over the next 12 hours. We're going to share a lot of tips, suhoor, related to suhoor, iftar, hydration, a lot of concerns we often get, constipation or lack of energy. So we're going to talk about some of the tips related to that. I'll share some suhoor ideas, and then I'm going to make it interactive. So I'm hoping you can tell me what you eat for suhoor and iftar and how we can make it healthier. And then, of course, and in the end, we're going to discuss some post-Tarawih snacks that we all like to hopefully eat, especially on weekends or the last 10 nights when we are staying up a lot more. We want some snacks to keep us going. So we're going to share some ideas there. Disclaimer that the information shared today is for a healthy adult. Anybody who has diabetes or kidney disease, this information doesn't necessarily apply to them because there is a different nutrition plan they would have to follow. So especially those with diabetes or kidney disease, doesn't necessarily apply to them. So you have a packet in front of you. We wanted this to be interactive, so try to fill it out whenever you feel like it. We'll start with your goal right here. What is your health goal this Ramadan? You can jot it down now, or you can jot it down as I go through the slides. The idea is to choose one realistic goal that you can work on. So a very common thing is water. I want to drink more water, but let's make it more realistic and measurable. I want to drink 6 cups of water between breaking my fast and suhoor. So in the nighttime, I'm going to try to do 6 glasses of water. So write that down as your goal if that's what your goal is. So it could be anything. As I go through the slides and something comes to your mind, write it down that that's your goal. That can be something you can work on for the first 10 days, first week. If you've become consistent, then you can change your goal. So this is something the reason I wanted to do this is make it practical for you, not something you just heard over here and we go home and we forgot about it. We want to take this home and practice it and hopefully make our Ramadan healthier. So why is this topic important? It's because it's in our deen. The Prophet ﷺ says there are 2 blessings which many people do not make the most of and thus lose out: good health and free time. Another hadith, take advantage of 5 before 5, your youth before your old age, your health before your sickness. So this shows us that health is a blessing from Allah. And when we are healthy, we can do much more with this blessing. We are productive, we have more energy. Just imagine when you have a headache. Can we get much done when we have a headache? We just can't get anything done. I mean, I can't get anything done. I had a headache yesterday and I couldn't do much. So that's your health, right? If you are healthy, you can take care of your responsibilities and be more productive. So that's why it's really important to take care of our health, especially when it comes to Ramadan, because we are only eating few hours in 24 hours. So we want to make sure we eat nutritious and balanced meals so we can have a healthy Ramadan, have our good health, have the energy that we need to do our ibadah. So that's why this topic is very important. So here I want some interaction. How does your body respond to fasting? Some common concerns, I get constipated, I get bloated. Anything that anybody want to share if you feel comfortable? Fatigue, that's a very common one, fatigue. Yes. I can't hear you. Say that again. Hunger? Oh, that's a very common one, hunger. Yes. So, yes, we get fatigued, constipated, bloated. There are many things, sometimes that's how our body reacts. So we want to take some of these things and see what can we do, what can we eat so we can improve our health and our energy. So what happens when we eat? So kind of let's just go behind the science of it. When we eat, our food is composed of carbohydrates, protein, and fat. We all have probably heard these terms. Carbohydrate is the main source of energy for our body. The first thing our body starts breaking down is carbohydrates. And then it breaks down protein and then fat as needed. It'll only break down protein and fat if it needs it. So when we eat suhoor, our body is gonna use some of the carbs for that time for the energy, immediate energy, and then it'll store away the rest of the extra carbohydrates, the protein, and the fat. And over the next 12 hours, it slowly starts using up the stored carbohydrates and the stored fat, which is why we don't want to overeat our carbohydrates, because then if you overeat it, your body will only use so much at that time. The rest, it's gonna just store away and becomes fat and gets stored. So that's why we want to eat carbohydrates, because it is our main source of energy for our body, for our brain. But we want to limit it and still make sure we eat our proteins and fat. Okay, so before we do that, so there's an activity and you have a pen, so if you would like to join me, that would be awesome. This is a plate. Imagine a plate. You're sitting down for iftar. It's going to be Maghrib in 5 minutes. You're sitting down for iftar. Draw out your plate. What does your typical plate look like when you're going to have iftar? You can draw it down. You can draw a samosa, a pakora, or you can write it down, but just I want you to start thinking, what does your plate look like? So I'll give you a couple of minutes. Oh no, just a minute is enough. So what does your typical plate look like in Ramadan for iftar? Okay, so you have your plate in front of you. We'll come back to this activity and talk about your plate. Let's move on. So I talked about 3 sources of energy for our body: carbohydrates, protein, and fat. This is how I usually explain it for it to make more sense. When we have our laptops and it's not charged, we connect it to a power outlet. That's our immediate source of energy. It starts working, right? Because it's an immediate source of energy to get our computer going. But then it gets charged. So the immediate source of energy is carbohydrates for us, but then it gets charged, so we don't need it connected anymore because it has backup battery. So that's where proteins and fat come in. So this is kind of just to make it easier to understand. So let's talk about these carbohydrates and protein and fat. Carbohydrates are of 2 types: simple and complex. Simple are those simple sugars that we find naturally in fruits, in vegetables, fruits, milk, and even processed foods like candy, donuts. Those are all simple carbohydrates. Why are they called simple? Because they are easily broken down by our body. We consume them, they get broken up, used up really fast, stored away, and that's it. We start feeling hungry again. So those are simple carbs. Not all simple carbs are bad, because I did mention fruits and vegetables, right? So we'll talk about that. We'll come back to that. But the idea is, how is it broken down? Simple and then complex are those that are full of soluble and insoluble fiber. Those are the ones that our body takes a while to break them down. It gets slowly digested. It stays in our body longer. It's broken down very slowly, so it makes us feel full for longer. So those complex carbohydrates are those that have fiber in it, mostly like our oatmeal, whole grain bread, brown rice. So avocado, those have fiber in it. Next, so carbohydrates give us energy, main source of energy, and then we have protein. We all know protein, our fish, our chicken, our lentils, our beans and peas and tofu, beef. These are all proteins. We want to try to do lean proteins. So is beef considered lean? No, it's a red meat. There are some cuts of beef that are considered lean, like tenderloin and sirloin, which are fine to consume once in a while, but we really want to try to limit red meat because of the saturated fat in it. So those are our protein sources, which also give us energy, and then we have fats. They also give us energy, but that's the last resort for our body. It doesn't start breaking it down till the very last minute, if it needs to. So that's olive oil, almond, walnuts, avocados, fish. Those are healthy sources of healthy fat that give us energy, but also those are good for our heart. We all have heard about fish, good for the heart, these healthy oils because they help us lower our LDL and raise our HDL, so that's good for the heart. So these are three main sources of energy. That's all great, but I never pick up a plate and say, okay, I'm gonna have a little carb, a little bit of protein, a little bit of fat. Do I do that? No, we need to know what does this really mean in practical terms. So that's where we're gonna talk about our plate. Can everybody see this plate? So when it comes to our plate, I don't want you to just think of it as a blank canvas. Think of your plate as food groups. And this is how we're gonna hopefully make it practical today so we can go back and apply some of these things we learned today. So carbohydrates, protein, and fat, that's great. But what does that really mean? We're gonna divide them into these food groups because that's how we actually think, right? That's what we decide to eat. So one thing I want to mention is this is a really good guide for us. This is my plate developed by USDA. I'm using it as a guide for Ramadan because it's a great tool for us. Not necessarily outside of Ramadan. I don't use it as a guide outside of Ramadan. It's great for kids, but not for adults outside of Ramadan. But in Ramadan, this is a great tool. And the reason, because it includes all the food groups. In Ramadan, we're only eating 2 meals and maybe a snack. So we want to make sure we include all our nutrients, pack them in these groups. So which is why we're gonna try to follow this. And you have a diagram of it on page 3, I believe. So we'll do that activity in a minute, but this is what we wanna try to follow. Half of our plates are vegetables and fruit. And if you'll notice, vegetables emphasized larger, right? It's a bigger portion than fruit. So you wanna imagine your plate. Half your plates are fruits and vegetables, but more of it are vegetables. You want more vegetables. And what kind of vegetables? You want to make them non-starchy vegetables. Okra, carrots, broccoli, cauliflower. There are a lot of non-starchy vegetables. We want to make them non-starchy vegetables cooked in the healthiest way. So you want to steam them, bake them, broil, have them raw, broil them. We want to obviously avoid frying them. Corn, potato doesn't come under vegetables here because that's actually a starchy vegetable, so that will just come under green. So we got ourselves a plate, we got some vegetables, and then we got our fruit. Fruit's very easy. I think, end up overeating on our fruits, right? Because we eat a lot of fruit chaat. Who eats fruit chaat? We eat a lot of fruit chaat. I think we end up overeating. It's good for us, but I think we end up overeating on it. So we want to limit our portion size here, and I'll talk about the 3 P's as well. Next, we'll talk about protein. We talked a little about what kind of proteins to choose. We want to choose lean proteins. So that's our fish, chicken, our dals, our beans. Those are all sources of protein. But when it comes to dals and chole, which are chickpeas, they're actually a combination food because they give us protein as well as carbohydrate, so it can come under grain as well. Grains, we want to choose whole grains. So you want to try to choose brown rice if possible. Our goal should be try to do 50% of what grains we eat to be whole grains. So I'm not saying you have to make brown rice biryani, But if you're gonna sit down, if you can't do that. You know you're gonna have biryani for iftar. Well, what can you do for suhoor that day and make it whole grain? So maybe you can have whole grain bread and whole grain roti, so that way you can have some whole grain in your diet. And we'll talk about why we want to do that, and one of the reasons besides being healthier. Dairy, let's imagine dairy as any beverage. Of course, we want to drink dairy, low-fat skim milk. Usually I try to recommend in Ramadan to have it as part of suhoor. But when it comes to iftar, imagine that as your drink, your water. We all love our red ruah afza, right? Who doesn't like ruah afza? Few? Okay, so I know it's a tradition and we all love it. My philosophy is never take anything away from you. If I take something away from you, you're just not gonna follow anything else I tell you because I just took what you love away from you. So the idea is to just eat in moderation and limit it. If you have ruah afza every day, how about maybe 3 times a week? Start with 3 times a week and not have it every day. We want to drink a lot more water because we are obviously fasting for more than 12 hours. We want to make sure we hydrate our body, give our body the right nutrients, which is why we're talking about balancing our meals, and that includes hydration as well. Another thing I want to talk about is this is probably a typical plate we all have at home, I think. If you look at the size, so you'll notice how it's pretty standard. We want it to be 9 to 10 inches, which this probably is. But if you look, it's not filled to the rim. So one of the things, well, actually 3 things that I want to talk about here is try to remember 3 P's. And that's something you can probably write down in your ideas, the dump your ideas column. The 3 P's. You want to watch out for your portion sizes, which is what these different colors tell us. We want to, portion size, P, pick the healthiest. So instead of fried, what would be the healthier option? Grilled, steamed, baked. So you want to pick the P for pick the healthier option. Prep. I knew I was missing another P. Pick the healthiest option. The way it's, so for example, instead of refined bread, choose whole grain bread. Instead of canned vegetables, use fresh vegetables. So pick the healthier of the 2. Then the way you prepare it. So P for pick the healthier one. P for prepare it in a healthy way. So instead of frying it, we want to steam it or bake it or air fry it. I mean, air fryer is great. Who has an air fryer? Everybody has an air fryer, I think. It's great. I've heard you can make pakoras in it too. Has anybody ever tried making pakoras? Are they good? Okay, well, good. We'll get the recipe from you. I have never tried it. So we want to pick the healthiest option. We want to prepare it in a healthy way. And then we also want to P for portion size. Watch for portion sizes. You see how the portion sizes are? The plate is not filled to the rim and food is not falling off. So it's important to remember that we watch out for our portion sizes. And we'll talk a little more about how we can eat mindfully as we go through the slides. So, can you tell that each plate contains the same amount of food? But the 12-inch one looks almost empty, seems like. So if we're walking and we just had, walking through the buffet that we're at and we're hungry, obviously we're starving, we didn't eat anything for 12 hours. If you get a 12-inch plate and put that much food in it, would you want to put some more on there? Very likely. So, yeah, I've done that too. So the idea is the way our plate looks. We eat with our eyes. We all have heard that. As the size of our dishes increase, so does the amount we scoop onto them. They cause us to serve ourselves more because the food looks smaller in the plate. The smaller the serving dish, the less you take and the less you eat. So the reason I'm mentioning this is not because I'm telling you to eat less and just stay hungry. I'm not saying we're going to stay hungry. the idea is to start with a small plate and forces you to get the proper portion sizes, gives you time to eat, and if you feel like you need to eat more, of course, go back for seconds, that's fine. But when you start off, you didn't fill your plate up to the top and it's overflowing, and then we end up overeating. So that's just a tip that we usually try to share with our patients, that try to use a smaller plate. Okay, so let's dive deep into what do we actually do. Let's be a little more practical. Nutritious suhoor. First of all, we don't want to skip our suhoor. I know when you're in high school and college, you just want to sleep through. I know at that time sleep is just so important right now because you just don't want to get up, but it's so important to get up and eat suhoor because it helps you. Otherwise, you're going to be lethargic, lack of energy. You're going to have headaches. You feel irritable. If you don't eat, do you feel moody and irritable and angry all the time? I do. Food is important. So it's important to get up and eat something. It's sunnah, as well as it's good. You need to eat that for your body, for your brain. So it's important to eat a balanced suhoor that includes a variety of food groups. So I'll share some examples with you, and then we'll talk about what you eat. So, an example, and a disclaimer here again, this is just I can't share portion sizes here because we are all individual. Our bodies are different, our sizes are different, our metabolism is different. So what we need when it comes to portion size is very different from one person to another. So I don't have portion sizes here. The idea is, what I'm trying to emphasize here is to have a balanced meal by including more than just one food group. So trying to have at least 3 food groups. So we have an egg with vegetables, our omelet, that's usually very typical. With loaded up with vegetables, a little oil, lots of vegetables, eat your whole wheat bread with it, or your whole wheat roti, but the idea is to try to make that whole wheat. And a cup of skim milk and a serving of fruit. Another one could be taking that egg, putting it in a tortilla, whole wheat tortilla, put some red peppers, some salsa, some cheese, skim milk, and fruit. The idea is we're trying to balance it with the various food groups so we can get all the nutrients, our vegetables, our fruits, and our dairy. Another example could be oatmeal. Make it in skim milk, sprinkle some sliced almonds, raisins, cinnamon powder, chopped apples, dates, anything you like on top of it. Have a boiled egg on the side, and fruit. Another very typical one that my dad loves, whole wheat roti with keema and a serving of fruit. Obviously, when I became a dietitian, I took his red meat away and made him eat chicken keema. So, how can we make it healthy? If you're eating keema, make it with chicken instead of beef. If you're eating just refined roti, try to switch to whole grain roti. And balance it with fruit. Something quick, if you're just sleepy or you woke up 10 minutes before and you're rushing and you're trying to wake everybody up, that happens to all of us. Something quick that you can do is PB&J. Toast your bread, put some peanut butter on it, and eat that quickly and drink a glass of milk if you need to do that. But try to get up and do something. Another quick thing that I do sometimes is soaked oats overnight. You just prepare them the night before. It's ready. Take it out of the fridge. I start eating it while I'm making the eggs or something. So just to kind of give you variety. So you'll see there's no malai and paratha on here. Who likes to eat malai and paratha? Just a very few? Okay, so I didn't mention it on here just because that's something I don't normally eat, but also because it's not the best. But what did I say earlier? My philosophy is never to take it away from you. If that is something you grew up eating, you love to have it, there's nothing wrong with it. The main thing to remember is moderation. We want to eat it in moderation. So if you are having it every day, maybe start doing it 3 times a week. So 3 times a week, have your malai and paratha, but then balance it with something. So for example, you had malai paratha, instead of having 2 parathas, cut it down to 1 paratha and 2 tablespoons of malai, and then add an egg with it. So you got some extra protein, and then maybe a fruit cup with it, or leftover fruit chaat. Something to balance it off. So like I said, if you like your nihari and keema, just try to make it healthier. Not completely get rid of it, that's okay. Just how can you make it healthier? How can you eat it in moderation? That's the key. Let's talk about our iftar, how to have a nutritious iftar. Something very basic and hopefully practical that you can actually write down and do is start with making sure you have at least 1 cup of raw vegetables or half cup of cooked vegetables on your plate. So the best thing, what usually I recommend is break your fast with date and water, and then pray your maghrib. Or even have some fruit, that's fine if you're really hungry. Then pray maghrib, and then come back and have some dinner. So that way you don't eat too much at one time. You get a break, your body gets a little time to digest what you did eat, and then you can pray your maghrib and eat the rest of your dinner. So when you sit down to eat your dinner, have 1 cup of vegetables, raw vegetables, so that could be your carrots or steamed broccoli, or cooked vegetables, half a cup cooked vegetables. So that's like maybe you made okra or bindi, or what else do we make? Spinach. Something that you have, anything. Half cup of cooked vegetables, and hopefully it's non-starchy vegetables. Potato does not count because actually that's very starchy vegetables in the same group as green. Have a serving of fruit. That's usually not a problem. We all love fruit chaat. That's not a problem usually. Eat lean proteins or plant-based proteins such as chicken, fish, lentils, and beans. This is usually not a problem either because we all like our chole. We love chole. That's a great source of protein and a carbohydrate. The problem is we eat a cup or 2 of it, and then we sit down and eat more biryani and more lentils and dal. So what happens is we just end up overeating on those healthy things many times. So that's why it's so important to balance your meals with the different food groups. If you sit down, have a date, some water, and even a cup of fruit if you really want to eat something, prayed maghrib, and then got up to eat dinner, start with vegetables, you will feel much better and you won't be starving, so you won't be shoving down food and 2 cups of chole. So chole are great. It's a great source. A lot of food in our culture is awesome. Halims and dal, those are healthy food. They're not even cooked with too much oil. They have protein and carbs. Oats in halim, which is whole grain. So these are great food items. It's just we end up overeating them, and we don't balance them out with other food groups. So that's the key here. And then we want to try to limit our red meat to once a week. So if you're nihari or beef biryani, try to just limit it to once a week. The reason, because it will help you with your cholesterol and obviously staying healthy. Limit fried and salty foods. Fried and salty food make you more thirsty. Of course, besides that, they're not the healthiest way of preparing it, but they do make you thirsty. So we already don't get a chance to drink a lot of water for 12 hours. So if we have a lot of fried and salty foods and then we go to sleep, then we wake up thirsty, we don't have a lot of time in the morning, we're gonna be thirsty. So which is why we wanna try to avoid them. So, well, what about my pakoras and samosas and my tandoori naan, right? So, just one of this, one naan. This is, I just used this, I'm not advertising or marketing this naan. I just happen to have this one. Has 250 calories in one naan. Usually when we sit down to eat our nihari, sometimes we don't stop at one naan. So it has no fiber, it's just pure carb, and we just eat it really fast, and by the time we finish eating our nihari and naan, our 2 naans, we don't have any room for vegetables because we're eating it so fast. So I'm not saying don't eat it. That would be wrong. I cannot take it away from you. The idea is to eat in moderation. If this is something you eat daily, well, let's cut it down to maybe once or twice a week, because we never want to just quit everything cold turkey. That never works. It makes it really hard for you, and then you end up binging when you do eat, then you just can't stop eating. So we don't want to get to that point. We want to just cut it slowly out of our diet, slowly change our lifestyle. So if you eat it every day, just maybe a better, healthier option would be a whole wheat roti. So maybe instead of having naan every day, do roti. Maybe instead of having biryani every day, balance it with dal and chawal and other things. So there's a lot of things, and we'll talk about more realistic things. But the idea is to eat it in moderation. Your pakoras and samosas, if you're frying it every day, maybe air fry it. Or cut it down to maybe 2 times a week or 3 times a week. Just cut it out a little bit, but we don't have to completely cut it out of our life. Hydration, this is very important. We have only very little time to eat and drink. Hydration, water is important for us because it helps us with digestion, it helps our cells. We need water. So when we do have that little time to eat and drink, we want to make sure we're eating and drinking the right things, which is why drinking water is the most important thing. If you must have ruafza, I would recommend limiting it to once or twice a week, maybe when there's a party, you're going to a iftar party, something like that. But if you're having it daily, it would be a good idea to cut it down. So if you have 4 glasses daily, maybe have 2 glasses and have 2 glasses of water and 2 glasses of ruafza. So slowly change your lifestyle, one thing at a time. And like I said, we're talking about a lot of things, but I want you to choose one goal for yourself. So in your handout, if you didn't already write it down, just a reminder, choose one realistic thing that you can do. It has to be realistic, that works for you, and it has to be measurable. So if you're gonna eat no more fried food in Ramadan, and last Ramadan you ate fried food every day, is that realistic? Probably not. So you can say, I will have fried food twice a week. Something like that. So make a realistic goal for yourself. And if we write it down, it helps us, it makes it more realistic for us to actually do it. So, So how much water should I really drink? This is what I recommend. So this is something that would be good to write down. Try to do at least 3 cups in the morning when you get up for suhoor. Try to do 3 cups. And then between iftar and bedtime, try to do 6 to 7 cups minimum. So this is a good guide to have a realistic number to go by. So not just drink more water, but this is, if you can measure it and make a realistic goal for it, it's more achievable. So 3 cups in the morning and 6 to 7 cups or more if you can between iftar and iftar and bedtime. So constipation, this is a very common concern that I get asked about. What do? I get constipated easily. These are some of the suggestions that you can try them all if you get chronic constipation. But one of my patients from last Ramadan, all she had to do was 1 tablespoon of chia seeds, put it in water, a cup of water the night before. She would wake up for suhoor, eat her eggs, fruit, and then drink that cup of water with 1 tablespoon of chia seed every morning. So it was soaked overnight. She would have that, and that's it. That's all she needed to do to make sure she was regular and not constipated the rest of the Ramadan. So that worked for her. When it comes to constipation and bloating, it's very unique to every single one of us. Some things work for some persons, some things don't work. So some of the things you can try is making sure you have half a plate of vegetables, non-starchy vegetables at iftar. They're full of fiber. So that'll be something good to start with. Serving of fruit, which we usually eat. We usually do have fruit chaat. If not, just eat fruit. You don't have to have a fruit chaat because it does have sugar and all that stuff added. But a little doesn't hurt. Eat whole grains. So if you're just eating regular bread for suhoor, switch it to whole grain bread, or do oatmeal maybe once or twice a week. Try to increase your fiber slowly, and that should help with constipation. Increasing fiber and making sure you have plenty of water. Those 2 things are the first things I suggest when somebody is dealing with constipation. Increasing your fiber slowly. If you too much fiber at one time, your body can't handle it either. So slowly increase your fiber intake and drinking more water. Those are the first 2 things to help with constipation if that's what you're dealing with. All right, so It's nighttime. You went for Tarawih, you came back, and you're a little hungry. What should I eat? A bag of chips? Probably not the wisest choice. It's fried, it's salty, it's gonna probably make you thirsty, it's empty calories, it's not gonna give you any nutrients. We need nutrients for our body because we're gonna fast the next day. We wanna make sure our body has what it needs so we don't lack energy, we don't feel fatigued, we don't get headaches, and we have the energy to do our ibadah. So some of the snack suggestions that I have here, write down one of your favorite one. You don't have to write them all down. One that you like. As I go through them, just write it down. You know what? I'm gonna try this. One thing you'll notice is it's a combination of protein and carbohydrate. We don't want to just eat carbohydrate. We don't want to eat just protein. We want to eat a combination. Together, they get digested slowly and make us feel full. Non-fat Greek yogurt with some chopped strawberries. Non-fat cottage cheese with some blueberries. A cup of skim milk with an apple. Hummus with veggies, your carrots and broccoli and celery sticks, whatever. If you must have pita chips, have some pita chips with hummus, but you'll have to limit, obviously, the amount of pita chips, but usually they're baked, so you're fine there. Apple and peanut butter, that's a great snack. Avocado toast. Homemade smoothie, that'll be refreshing. It'll give you the water content you need. Because we want to try to choose fruits, of course, I forgot to mention that. We want to try to choose fruits that are high in water content, like watermelon. Those are high water content food because that also counts as the water that we're going to go take in. Boiled egg and fruit. Do eggs have to be only for breakfast? No, it can be a great snack. Boiled egg and fruit is a great snack. Post-workout snack, post-tarawih snack. So these are some of the suggestions I wanted to share. Does anybody have a healthy suggestion they love and want to share? You want to share one? Yes. I can't hear you. You want to tell us?
It was that so when you should take like certain times for your snacks so that you won't too late or too early when you're doing your snacks, and you should pick a healthy choice.
That's right. Okay, so she mentioned a very good point that we don't want to eat too late or too early, which would work fine outside of Ramadan, because we have such limited time to eat. It's okay to come after Tarawih, eat, and then maybe go to sleep in half an hour. Yes. Eat a snack without salt? Cheese sandwich without salt? A cheese sandwich. That's a great idea. Cheese sandwich, a whole grain bread with cheese in the middle. It's a great snack. 5 minutes? Okay, we have 5 minutes. Okay, mindful eating. Some of the tips that I recommend, and you can choose one of these things or two of these things. Intention. So when you sit down to eat, what is mindful eating? Mindful eating is actually being present, being focused, kind of like when we pray our salah, we want to focus and be present. Saying when you're sitting down to eat, be present, be mentally present. What am I eating? Think about your texture, your food, your flavor. So make the intention that I'm going to eat mindfully. Say Bismillah, make your intention. Don't load up your plate. We can always go back for seconds. So don't load up your plate. Think about this plate and how your plate needs to be, not filled to the rim. Put the fork down between bites. Usually my clients are like, what? What is that? The reason I mention this is because we want to eat slowly. It takes about 20 minutes for our stomach to send signal to our brain that you're full. So if we're eating fast, by the time the brain gets the signal from the stomach, we already have overeaten. So that's why we want to eat slowly. And what seems to usually work is if you take a bite and actually put your fork down between bites, it forces you to eat slowly. So that's a trick that usually seems to work, which is why I'm saying put your fork down, put your spoon down between bites. And then learn your hunger cues. Listen to your body. Don't just eat and talk and that's it. Listen to your body. Okay, how did I feel? Do I feel full? Do I feel tight? Maybe I'm feeling thirsty and not hungry right now. So listen to your body. That's very important. So we have like probably 3 minutes. So I have a plate, page 3, I believe. That's somewhere where I want you to build your healthy plate. So you sat down for iftar, azan is about to happen in 5 minutes. What are you going to eat? Say tomorrow is the first day of Ramadan. What will you eat? Let's build a healthy plate for yourself. From all the things you've learned, what will your plate look like? I'm hoping a little different from last Ramadan. So just draw out a picture. Make a fruit that you would have, some vegetables. Write it down, draw it out, whatever works for you. But just something practical to leave with from this presentation. Like I said, we don't have to try to do everything, but one thing, even if you just take one or two things, that'll work for you. And it has to work for you. So the bottom line is eat in moderation. Try to include your vegetables and fruit, and try to do whole grain. Those would be the few things, and drink plenty of water. So that means try to substitute your sugary drinks with water. And that is it. Ooh, good question. I almost did put it in my presentation, but I took it out because I was going to go over. The question is, what about chai? That's a great question. If you are in the habit of drinking chai, and if you don't drink chai, you're going to get a headache, and you can't survive, that's completely fine. Have a cup of chai. It's important to remember that the chai cannot replace your water, and you cannot replace your food. So have your meal, have your water, have a cup of chai. That's completely fine. Right now, Ramadan is not the good time to try to cut out of your chai, because then you will have a headache and you won't have any energy. So it's probably not a good time to try cutting out caffeine if that's what you want to do. Did that answer your question? Did you want to?
Would you suggest us to, oh, this is really loud. Would you suggest us to start now to get our body used to diet?
That's a very good question. That is actually a great idea. When we prepare for Ramadan, we prepare in many ways. Some of us have started fasting the last few days, the 13th, the 14th, the 15th. So yes, if this is something you want to start implementing, I would say, yeah, definitely start with including more vegetables and fruit in your diet, and maybe doing more whole grain. That would be a great way to start, definitely.
Sister, we have one here as well.
Yes.
Sorry if I missed in the beginning. My problem during Ramadan is, like, usually I'm late in eating. So some of the food choices you make is to have something that can, doesn't dry. It's Ramadan. You are working. You have meetings all around. So what is the healthy choice that you can have in suhoor that keeps your throat, your lungs, more hydrated? That's one of the issues that everybody has, I believe, everybody who's working.
Definitely. Did you say you were late? You missed this one? You saw this one? Okay, so I'll leave this one on for you. So yeah, that's a very good question. I think he said wake up late so you don't have time, so. Okay. So definitely, these are some suggestions where I'm emphasizing various groups. You want to try to include all food groups. When you include your fruits, fruits have water, especially watermelon. Some of the fruits are higher in water. Cucumbers are vegetables that are high in water content. So when we include fruits and vegetables, we're getting our fiber that will keep us full. And then, of course, we get some water content. And another thing I mentioned earlier is try to have a goal of, what was the next one, I guess? How much water to drink? This is a slide where I talked about try to do at least 3 cups of water. And now if you're going to drink chai, which is completely fine if that's what you're used to, but then chai does seem to make you thirsty. It has caffeine in it, which makes you thirsty, and essentially. So then you want to try to see if you can get up earlier and have more water, 4 cups of water, but making sure you're staying hydrated in the morning, but also afterwards, after you've break your fast, making sure you drink lots of water, because that's what you will have for the next day as well. So hopefully that didn't answer your question, you can come afterwards and I can, yeah. Anything else? Okay, soups and shorbas. So I'm thinking when you say shorba, you mean like the nihari, what's shorba and the nihari? Okay, so it really depends on how much oil is in it. We tend to sometimes cook with too much oil. So for example, if you make okra, who fries okra and then cooks it? Many of us, yeah. So a healthier way to cook that would be roasting the okra in the oven, and that way you can prevent the frying it, and then that makes okra healthier. I make okra once a week. I roast it in the oven. So the idea is to take what you're eating right now and how can you make it healthier. So maybe start with less oil. If you have less oil, then there's nothing wrong with eating the shorba, because usually the shorba is made of what? Onions and tomatoes anyways, right? Those are vegetables. They usually we come into problem when there's too much oil in it. So start measuring your oil, how much oil you're putting in it, and try to cut it out and see, does it even make a big difference if you, instead of putting 1 cup, if you put half a cup, can you even tell? So that would be an experiment I would start with. Any other questions?
When is the best time to exercise in Ramadan?
Ooh, I was hoping I wouldn't get into that at all. That's a very good question. If you are already in the habit of exercising and working out and you want to continue, that is completely fine. I would recommend after you break your fast, you did Maghrib, and if you have time between Maghrib and Isha, then go for it. Even after Isha is fine, depending on when you need to get to bed. But making sure that when you do work out, after that, after you exercise, make sure that you have something to eat. Because we already didn't eat enough throughout the day. We need to definitely make sure if outside of Ramadan you would exercise and you were fine, you have to make sure you exercise and then eat something. A very good thing would be to eat a combination of protein and carbs. So for example, banana and peanut butter. For example, something that will give you instant energy, like banana, and then of course protein. So yes, you can work out after Isha or do exercise after Isha if you're already used to it. If you're not used to doing exercise, then probably Ramadan is not the best time to start intense exercise. Maybe a little bit if you want to try it, but you really have to know your body. So that's something very individualized. Anything else?
Thank you, Sister Fatima. Jazakallah khairan. This session has given us an opportunity to prep for Ramadan proactively. On behalf of the ICF, where did she go? Wait, where did she go? Oh, yeah. On behalf of the ICF Youth Committee, we would like to give you this as a token of our appreciation.
Thank you so much.
As our session comes to an end, I would like to request all the attendees to scan the Eat, Pray, Ramadan QR codes we have placed throughout the masjid. It's a short survey to help us understand your needs and expectations. Thank you so much all for coming. Assalamu alaikum.
I think we have a little bit of time before Isha, inshallah, so we're going to try to serve the food right now. Again, just a quick reminder, the QR codes are scattered around the masjid, so please, inshallah, answer those questions of the survey. I'm sure we want Sister Fatima to come back and talk a little bit about post-Ramadan after we gained a little bit of weight. So inshallah, Jazakallah khair.